Okay, Mercedes showed some of their true speed today with Antonelli and Russell, the only people this week to go under 134. But at this point, I don't think it means that much. So they broke under 134. We know that Mercedes is a favorite, but that's still a good story. But I think the biggest story today was with McLaren. McLaren is getting a lot of mileage and a lot of laps in. Oscar Piastri got 160 laps today by himself. And yesterday, I think Norris got something like 147. And it's clear, this is why this is a big story. What McLaren is doing is that they're not showing their true race pace. They're doing what McLaren always does, in which they slowly build up data. So this was endurance testing for them. They were building up data to show that there's correlation with smooth driving over long distances to make sure that nothing's wrong. And this is the methodology they use even when they do upgrades. Before they do an upgrade, like let's say they want to do something with their wing, they'll test it over thousands of different variable contexts to see how it behaves in those contexts before making a leap. And even when they make a leap on their suspension or in their wings, it's always a small leap, which is a gradual improvement by rather than taking big risks, which is the opposite. Like let's say Ferrari, when they change 99% of their car and change their front suspension radically. So what McLaren is doing is testing for reliability and stability over tons and tons and tons of laps and miles so that they can verify that running at a pretty good pace, even though they didn't have the fastest pace this weekend, at a pretty good pace, the car looks like it's handling smooth and everything else. So that's what I take from that. We can go back to another thing we can take for this is that Ferrari also looks like right now they've demonstrated the best race pace this weekend. But once again, we can't jump to conclusions and say that just because they have the fastest race pace, that they're the fastest car. It just shows that they're stable and fast, but they haven't put in as many laps as a team like McLaren. So for now, it looks like they're fast, but we don't know because we get a sense that teams like Mercedes, especially, and even McLaren are not turning their engine on to full power. So we can't jump to conclusions now. But I just like the methodology that McLaren is using, getting a lot of laps in. What do you think of Folabi?
Yeah, I quite agree with you. I mean, if you look at their performance today and all week long, they've racked, a total of 422 laps with Oscar Piastri logging in a massive 161 on the final day. And this looks like a very, very efficient, package. Their aero performance, their correlation has been steady but incremental. I think they want to ensure that their data, the data they're simulating matches the track perfectly before they begin to upgrade. But if you look at this again, it looks as if everybody is guilty of sandbagging one way or the other. They seem to be hiding one thing. And the reason is because they're running on low fuel now. When the fuel is heavier next week, we might get a better, clearer picture, so to speak.
Yeah. And my guess is that next week teams can't afford to hide because you don't want to sandbag too much because you need to understand what your car can do when you push the limits, and you need to understand the limits of your car. And I don't think a team will want to wait until FP1 in Australia to start pushing the limits. So next week, I think the truth will come out about Mercedes because right now a lot of people are saying that Max Verstappen's fantastic day on I think it was day 2. I think it was day 2 or day 1 where he demonstrated fantastic speed on the straights. So a lot of people are saying that that's the benchmark, but I don't think we've seen Mercedes turn on the engine all out. So we'll just have to wait and see. Also today,
Lewis Hamilton had 100 ratio thing. It appears Mercedes may be hiding something there. This compression ratio stuff, yeah.
I believe they're hiding it. Ferrari, very good weekend. 150 laps today by Hamilton. And once again, Ferrari showing the best race pace so far. They have the fastest race pace, 29 seconds faster than McLaren. But we have to remember that just means they were pushing faster than other teams over a lot of distances and showed reliability. But I don't think McLaren has done an all-out race trim yet. Williams continue making good improvements, 146 laps today. The times are still slow, and the 137s, I think. Don't quote me on that. I'll check. But Haas has 145 laps. Fantastic weekend for Haas. And as usual, not only did they get laps in, they got pretty good times. Bierman today had a 135.9, which is good. I want to see what the times Williams had. So with Williams, you're looking at Alex Albon with 136.6, Sainz with 137. So Williams is running 136, 137, and they're getting in more lap time. So they're relatively slow to the people at the top of the grid, but they've avoided a real catastrophe that could have been made by not showing up for the shakedown. Because we're seeing that there's a big catastrophe for Lance Stroll and Aston Martin and co. They were running 138s today and only did 72 laps. So that Aston Martin car is not ready. But Williams is a big winner because they're not doing as well as they wanted to do, but it's not a catastrophe. But I think the biggest winner this week, it was all, to be honest with you, was Haas. Haas has demonstrated, along with Ferrari, that they have a reliable engine and they actually have pretty good pace. What do you think of Falabi?
Yeah, Haas has done really well this week, and if you look at the way they have performed, I mean, they've exceeded expectation. You never know what is going to happen at the end of the day when the season starts, because all of this, I mean, preseason testing is just like in football as well. You never know what will happen when the season starts. They have been a very surprise. It's like a stealth performer of the week. Nobody expected
Yeah.
it, and they've been very reliable over the flash. I think they finished fourth in total mileage for the week. They were able
Yeah.
to rack up almost 400 laps, and their VF26 is one of the most mechanically sound cars on the grid. And both Bierman and his teammate have done really well. Uh,
Yeah.
I feel by next week we should have a clearer picture. But if you look at the way they've done purely on data, I think they've done well this week. Total
Yeah.
laps at the end of the day was 396. In terms of reliability and the basics, they have done creditably well.
Yeah. Now, the biggest story in the paddock, which Red Bull wants to deny, is that Red Bull seems like they have nailed, and when I say nailed deployment, perfect union between the combustion and the electrical, and they're able to maintain power on the straights without getting any clicking. Other teams have shown clicking. McLaren has shown clicking. Mercedes has shown clicking, and I don't think when you're having that clicking, that's a sandbagging thing. It's showing that the Ford engine is able to deploy power and maintain it within the balance with both all the way through the straights, where teams tend to die out on the straight to the point at which they may have a 6/10 to a second advantage over the rest of the teams. I think that once we see Mercedes bring out his full package, that Red Bull may still very well have a 3/10 of a second on the straights. So what that's showing us is that whether or not Mercedes has a very powerful engine and may have decent deployment, it looks like Red Bull is either they've got that deployment going where they're sustaining both the electrical and the combustion for a long period, or what I more suspect is that it's brake action by Verstappen to manipulate the electrical part to harvest energy, which is a lot of energy. So when you're harvesting energy, you're still losing energy in the system, but you're redirecting the important energy to be used on the straights. You get what I'm saying, Afolabi? Because harvesting is different from deployment. I think what's really happening with Red Bull is that they've got good deployment, but with the way Verstappen uses the brakes to charge the engine and conserving engines, where on the straightaway he has a massive amount of energy that's been stored and saved for the straightaway without having lost anything on the corners. You see what I'm saying? And so I think that's the harvesting, and that's the electrical advantage that the Ford engine may have over Mercedes. What do you think, Afolabi?
Yes, I quite agree with you. And if you look at what the information says, I mean, Red Bull's advantage in energy management is the most talked about story now is like a technical secret in the Bahrain paddock. Batteries aren't big enough to provide full power, especially for the entire length of the long straights in Bahrain. But the way Red Bull have done it. I mean, the single lap versus consecutive laps. Anything can dump their whole battery for one fast qualifying lap, but doing it on 10 consecutive laps, as Max
Oh
did
yeah,
on
what's happening?
one, is
Yeah,
what shocked rivals. And this shows a lot
yeah.
of efficiency. It suggests that Red Bull's Ford engine is so efficient at harvesting energy, especially during braking. And the throttle faces and the way they are depressed and deployed shows that they have everything straight with a fuller tank of electricity than anyone else on the paddock. And this is really encouraging.
Afolabi, I'm taking notes as you are speaking. Professor, continue.
And
I hear what you say. Go ahead.
And you see also the GPS data shows that Mercedes and McLaren's top speed or top performance significantly before turn one. Red Bull, however, continues to accelerate almost all the way to 100
Yeah,
meters board. So I don't know. I think it's
and
the Ford engine
and
is what is giving them.
people are noticing that in transitional zones, especially where you have to come off and activate that torque, when the torque hits coming off the corners, the Red Bull car is the most stable right now. But let's go back to that way he did metronomic laps. I was watching it, and I got the feeling when you looked at Verstappen when he was on the straights, you could tell that he was setting certain times that he wanted to hit, and he would have a flat throttle. So let's say he would go at 328 kilometers an hour and just leave it there. When he comes back to that same thing again, 328, then later on he'll go to 340 something, then stop. So it looks like he was pacing himself the way that runners do when they train for long distance to break the world record. They do interval training. It looks like he was doing interval training, setting times and hitting them at ease. And when he would get to the very tight chicane-like corner at 10, he was carrying more entry speed and more exit speed than the other drivers. That's not just the car, that's actually Verstappen. So what you're seeing with this metronomic control is Verstappen knows how to use. This car was developed for his throttle and his braking style, and he's using it to charge and energize the car, and also with the way he drives anyway, coming into corners at higher speeds than others, because he's able to rotate earlier and brake later and bring in more speed into corners. So what you're seeing is that the car has been tailored towards his driving style, throttle-wise, entry-wise, rotation-wise, and everything else. And this is going to be the most dangerous combination in sports, is Verstappen in this RB22. What do you think, Afolabi?
Yeah, you see, why this metronomic pace is a threat is simple, because metronomic laps in testing are usually the final boss of data for rival teams, because they prove three things. Number one is a massive setup in their window, the car development window, the tire management perfection. It will show you how your tires are behaving, and then your energy recovery stability. Now, a car that can lap consistently is not on a knife edge. It means that the RB22 is stable and reasonably predictable. Now, if you allow Max to drive to 99% of the limit without ever accidentally dropping to 95 or spiking to a mistake, you're going to have an excellent performance, basically. And yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Sliding in heating, if your lap times don't slow down as the stint continues, it means that your car isn't sliding or scrubbing the tires. This suggests that maybe, I don't know, the Red Bull has found a way to keep the 2026 Pirelli rubber in perfect temperature window. That's just what I feel.
Yeah, and not only that, is now showing that, unlike last year, this car has a very wide window for performance between all types of tracks, which vary from high speed to low speed corners, mid speed corners, keeping balancing everything. They have a higher window. That other car that they had was very peaky, and when it was at its sweet spot, it was faster than any car, but its sweet spot was very narrow. This car has a very wide window based on his metronomic performance and being able to maintain 134s over and over again, and being able to hit 344 kilometers, be able to hit kilometers that he wants to at will without, like you said, without any locking out or sliding or anything else. So this car has a wider window. And I keep saying this, Verstappen is such a great driver that the nimbleness of this car and the fact that it can jump from under you and everything and has less grip is going to be less of a problem for him. So now all he's focusing now on is deployment and car management. What are your last thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean, this is a psychological advantage, whether you admit it or not. Toto Wolff voted after the first day. He said, seeing a driver do 136 laps without the level of consistency strikes fear into the paddock. It suggests that while other teams are still trying basically to figure out how to make their cars work, Red Bull has already moved to polishing a dominant race pace. And it's not just that he's fast. Max Verstappen is not just fast, it's that he's fast without trying too much. When the lap times are flat, it means that the driver has plenty of margin left to cover, basically.
All kinds of windows, basically, all kinds of windows. All right. this one was a PhD performance that we did today, man. If you don't like it, subscribe. The best F1 channel in Africa. Something's wrong with your ass, motherfuckers. Thank you. We're out of here. So I thought let's jump straight to Arsenal.
Okay, yeah, sure.
That was a nice one we did. That was a
brilliant
nice
one.
That was
whether we like it or not, because of the operations, we're going to have to do a lot of more technical stuff this season.
Oh yeah, but we're doing it. We don't need guys.